Hello and welcome to Research Methods for Economists. I am Balai Zode. This is a video series and I will see a motivation of the research under this video series, significance of the research, and I will make end of the chapter 1. We also start a chapter 2. Under that, we will see the formulation of the research problem and hypothesis, importance of having a problem statement, criteria of good research problem, and the source of a research problem. When we start from motivation of a research, or what makes a people to undertake a research, the possible motive for doing research may be either one or more of the following. The first one is desire to get a research degree along with its consequential benefits. This is for graduate students. To get a degree, the one criteria is conducting a research so that it is a good for or desire for that area. The other desire to face a challenge in solving the unsolved problem. The other motivation is to solve a problem, to face a challenge, and also that is a concern over practical problem initiates the research. The other motivation is for solving of the problem. The third one is desire to get intellectual joy of doing some creative work or to create some new things or new events or to develop a theory. The fourth one is desire to be of service to society. This is, for example, around the university area, there is a community research that is used to serve their society of or society that around a university. The other one is desire to get a respectabilities. To be a respected man, an individual is motivated to conduct research. However, this is not an exhaustive list of factors motivating people to undertake a research studies. In many more factors such as directive of governments, for example, if directed by government to conduct research over different policy areas or employment condition as a condition for employment, curiosities about new things or motivations to have a new things for to create a new things, desire to understand causal relationship, to understand the relationship between two variables, social thinking and awakening, and like may as well motivate people to perform a research operation. So that there are many motivations that an individual is motivated to conduct a research. But this one is some part, it is not all inclusive. When we come to the significance of the research, what is the significance of the research? All progress is born of inquiry or born of question. Doubt is often better than overconfidence. Confusion is better than having overconfidence over the areas, because it leads to inquiries or it leads to some question, and some inquiry leads to invention. If you ask all the time, you may invent new things. It is a famous Henderson maxi in context of which the significance of research can well be understood. This guy was USA inventor and a chemist who invented a variety of explosive, including smokeless gunpowder. Thomas Edison An American inventor and a businessman who has been described as America's greatest inventor referred to him as the most versatile man in the America. Increased amounts of research make progressive or progress possible. If there is a research, many research, there is a possibility to be progress. Research teach a scientific and inductive thinking. If you are a researcher, you are thinking inductively and also you are thinking scientifically because the method a researcher uses is systematic ways. It is a scientific ways. It promotes the development of logical habit of thinking and organization. So that research is very significant. The role of research in several fields of applied economics, whether related to business or to the economy as a whole, has greatly increased in modern times. The increasingly complex nature of the business in the government has focused attention on the use of research in solving operational problems because researching is finding of a truth. Researching is from known to unknown, as we define on under video 1. Conducting research means searching of new things, searching of truths. If there is a complexity, such complexity is solved through research. It cannot be solved simply by ordinary understanding of things as it is. Rather, it needs research. That is why if business is complex, the time is complex, research is required. Research as an aid to economic policy has gained added importance both for government and the business. Research provides the basis for nearly all government policy in our economic system. So a government all the time before making a policy needs a researcher and needs a research outputs and needs research output to use as input for his policy formulation or making of policy. Decision making may not be part of the research. It is not part of the research. Decision making is in the hand of other person. It is in the hand of policymaker for decision makers rather. But research certainly facilitates the decision of the policymaker. By this, we have end or finished chapter 1. Now, let us come to chapter 2. Under chapter 2, we will see different issues. For now, let we start from formulation of the research problem and the hypothesis. We will see what is hypothesis, what is a research problem, criteria of research problem, source of the problem, and the like. There we go. Let us go. The first one is research problem. A central aim of this chapter is to detail the process of research problem and the hypothesis formulation. What is a research problem? How can we state a research problem? What is the elements of a research problem? Broadly speaking, any question that you want answered, any question that you need answer for that question, and any assumption or assertion that you want to challenge or investigate can become a research problem or research topic for your study. So, if you have a question on your mind that need answer but didn't get answer till now, is your research problem. But it is not all question on your mind can be a research problem because of different problems that we will see. However, it is important to remember that not all question can be transformed into a research problem, and some may prove to be extremely difficult to study. Even though it is your question needs answer, it is difficult for you to get that answer. For example, if you ask or if you want to answer or if you expect answer, which one is first, hen or egg? It is very difficult to get an answer for this one. So such is not a problem. You cannot state as problem and you cannot get the answer for this one. So let us see the criteria. The following are the reason for not transforming all question into a research problem. 1. The nature of the problem by itself is difficult. For example, some may prove to be extremely difficult to study. It is difficult to study, for example, which one is first, egg or hen? Is that not possible for you to be steady about this one because the nature of the problem is very difficult. But you didn't understand. You can't get you didn't get the answer till now. You haven't get any answer about this one. But you cannot study that one because it is very extremely difficult to study such problem. There is also another problem that you cannot study. The other is lack of data. If you have no data, you cannot undertake that research and cannot get the answer for it. Even though it is your question, even though your mind asks about that. The other is time and resource consolidation. If you have no time, you cannot conduct or you cannot undertake the research. If, for example, a research scope is very wide and the time you have is very short, so you cannot conduct over that area. And also, if there is no resource or finance, you cannot conduct that research. It is not possible for you. The other is expertise lacks. If you are not expert, for example, or if you have no such skill, it is not possible for you to study. As a newcomer, it may seem easy to formulate a problem, but it requires considerable knowledge of both the subject area and research methodology. To conduct a research, first of all, you have to know the methodology, a research methodology. If you don't know the methods, you cannot conduct a research. And not only this one, but also you have to know the area, the subject area. You have to have knowledge over the subject area. Otherwise, even though you know the research methodology, and if you not know that area, it is difficult for you to study as research. So, you should spend considerable time in thinking in through while selecting of the research problem or selecting of your title. You have to take into account all of these problems because you will face in the future. For example, if you have no finance, you cannot conduct. If you are no expert over the area, you cannot conduct. If there is no resource, you cannot conduct. If you cannot get the data, it is not possible to conduct your research. If the nature of the problem is very difficult, you cannot get the answer. So that you will fail after a while. So you have to think over this area to conduct your research, especially for those who are going to graduate should identify this problem. Otherwise, it is difficult to conduct a research. In general, the following point may be observed by a researcher in selecting a research problem or subject for a research. What is that? Let me see. A subject which is overdone should not be normally chosen, for it will be a difficult task to throw any new light in such cases. a research or a title that is already overdone, a research that many people done for a long period of time, all people uh, conduct that on that title, it is difficult to you to get anything because many people try to get anything and that is overdone. So such is not selected as a research title. The other is controversial subject should not become the choice of an average researcher. If the subject is very confusing or very controversial, very ambiguous, that cannot be understood by individual, it is not possible for a research. So don't choose such um, a research title. Too narrow or too vague problem should be avoided. If it is too narrow, it is not possible for you to write many things. If it is too vague, it is not possible for you to state the problem and to conduct a research. So you have to avoid such. The subject selected for a research should be familiar and feasible so that the related research material or source of the research are within one reach. The importance of the subject, the qualification and the training of the researcher, the costs involved, the time factor are few other criteria that must also be considered in selecting the problem. So, in selecting of your research problem or research title, you have to identify all of these problems first of all. If there is one problem from this, you cannot conduct your research after you start to do that research. So please try to identify this problem, especially data is very difficult for new researchers. First of all, you have to identify whether possible for you to get data, whether it is possible for you to get a finance, and whether it is possible, whether you have enough time. Otherwise, you have to choose another title, which is fit with the time, fit with your area, fit your finance, fit your with your capacity, with your skill, and so on. In other words, before the final selection of the problem is done, a researcher must ask himself the following question: whether he is well equipped in terms of his background to carry out the research. So what we have said is this one. You have to know yourself to conduct a research. You have to know before starting of undertaking a research, you have to know yourself. Whether the study fell within the budget he can afford. You have to identify whether your budget match with a research title. For example, if your research needs 10,000 birr or $10,000 and you have $5,000, you cannot attend this research. So you have to stop or search another research that can you finish with the scope of your finance or budget. Whether budget is not only finance but also time is a budget. Whether the necessary cooperation can be obtained from those who must participate in research as subjects. Whether you get support from your advisor, for example, from another a researcher, or from your company, you have to identify this one, whether there is a cooperation or not. Otherwise, it is difficult for you to finish. Let us come to the importance of formulating a research problem. What is the importance of formulating a research problem? Why we formulate a research problem? What is the need of to be very strict on a research problem? Let us see the importance. The formulation of research problem is the first and the most important step of the research process. It is a first and it is important. If there is no research well designed and a well articulated research problem, no need to conduct a research. It is not possible to conduct a research because your objective is that problem. It is like identification of the destination before undertaking a journey. For example, if you want to go somewhere tomorrow, the area is not identified, but you plan to go somewhere, and if you didn't identify the country that you will go, how you can go tomorrow morning? It is impossible to go because where you will go, you didn't identify the destination or a country. So if you didn't write or well uh, a written statement of the problem, how you can conduct a research? It is impossible, like that of journey. So statement of the problem is the key for your research. As in the absence of destination, it is impossible to identify the shortest or indeed any route in the absence of clear research problem. A clear and economical plan is impossible. A research problem is like the foundation of the building. That is, if one engineer wanted to build a house, the foundation is the base for building of wall, building of roof, and totally the strength of the house. If the foundation is well established or well built, the house is well built. Otherwise, it is difficult. The type and the design of the building is dependent upon the foundation. If foundation is very poor, the house is poor, that is already known. It will fail after a while. If the foundation is well designed and strong, you can expect the building to be also. That means the building is very strong if foundation is strong. So that if let us take this example to our research problem. If we as a researcher well designed and a very strong statement of problem, our research is very strong. This is what we mean the importance of a research problem. A research problem serves as a foundation of a research studies. If it is well formulated, you can expect a good study to follow. If one wants to solve the problem, one must generally know what the problem is. We have to identify the problem. It can be said that a large part of the problem lies in knowing what one is trying to do. You must have clear idea with regard to what it is that you want to find out about and not what you think you must find. A research problem may take number of forms, from very simple research problem to a very complex research problem. The way you formulate a problem determines almost every step that follows. Depending on the way you formulate, we will see the following. The type of the study design that can be used, depending on the way we formulate the problem. Type of sampling strategy that can be employed, depending on the formulation of our problem. The research instrument needed that can be used or developed, that is also depending on the problem formulation. The type of analysis that can be undertaken and the like is depending on the problem formulation. So, for formulating a research problem require both knowledge of the subject area and a research methodology. To do this, you have to know first a research methodology, second subject area. If you have known the procedure, you can't understand the ways of conducting a research, or if you have no any knowledge about the area, you cannot conduct a research. So, while selecting a research problem or research title, you have to select one, the area you know well, and you have to understand a research methodology. Otherwise, it is difficult for you since it is very technical. The formulation of the problem is like the input into the studies, and the outputs, the quality of the contents of the research report, and the validity of the association or causation established is entirely depend upon it. Hence, the famous saying about computers, garbage in, garbage out, is equally applicable to a research problem. What is garbage in, garbage out? If your input is garbage or bad things, your output is garbage too. So, to get quality output, you have to have quality input. Otherwise, it is the same with this computer saying that garbage in, garbage out. So you have to strong over the area of this research problem. So that take a time over formulating your problem. You have to study many times over formulating of your problem. You have to study many times selecting of your research title. For the clearer you are about your research problem creation, the easier it will be for you later on. If you study well first, if you digest well, first of all, on selection of research title, after that stating of research problem, thinking or taking account the problem behind, such as whether you get a data or datas, or whether you have a time, whether you are equipped, whether you have knowledge around areas, uh, you have to take a time over these areas. After that, you can select what you want. Remember, this is the most crucial steps. Selecting a research problem is very crucial step. So take due care in selecting and formulating a research problem. Once you develop the problem, 50% will be done from the 100% research studies. That because if you do well a research problem, the other may be easy. The other may be easy for you because the left one is a methodology, significance, and so on. We'll see all of this in the future, but you have to be strong over this area. The problem to be investigated must be defined unambiguously, for that will help to discriminate relevant data from irrelevant ones. So, defining a research program properly is prerequisite for any study. It is step of the highest importance. When you try to conduct a research, first of all, you have to take care of these areas. If you write in good ways, very strong ways on statement of the problem, the other is not much difficult like statement of the problem, because the source of your problem or the source of your research is your statement of problem. The source of totally a research is a problem. If there is no problem, there is no research. So you have to know this one. After that, you can do another components of the research if you well articulate your statement of problem. In fact, formulation of the problem is often more essential than its solution. Criteria of good research problem. First of all, let we see some components of the problem. In a research problem, we have to write uh, some components of a research problem. For example, first of all, we have to write context. What to write in context? You have to introduce general topic and the relevancies. What is its relevance? You have to say, what is its relevancy? The second one is specific problem. It states the precise issues. You have to state the precise issues after a context. First of all, you have to write a context or introduce general topic in the relevancies, some parts. Then on the second paragraph, you have to state specific problem. That is, state the precise issues, your problem. This is the central one. On the second paragraph or on the second views, the evidence, facts, states the data to prove the problem existed. What kind of problem exists? You have to explain in data. For example, you may say debt to GDP ratio increased from 25 or 30 to 50. This is how you can, or you can say the population growth increased from 20 to 25. You have to explain in terms of number. This is evidence. It shows the existing problem. The other is you have to identify gap. What's missing in research or practice? For example, in the previous research, what is the gap? You have to identify the gap. No research study, for example, you can say there is no research that have been undertaken on this title, or implications. The other one is implication. You have to write implication also in statement of problem. Consequence, if problem is ignored. What is the consequence if such problem is not solved or ignored? You have to state also the consequence within statement of problem. The other, who is affected? You have to state also which party is affected because of this. Is that policymaker affected? Is that lender? Is that citizen or others? You have to state also this one. If we will not solve this problem, there is a consequence. What kind of consequence you have to show? This is also part of statement of the problem. The other, in summary one or very brief scope, limits and the focus of the study. The other, optionally, a research question also. Question you study the answer. This is optional because there is a research question that you will write after research statement of problem. We will see it. Relevancies. You can state your relevancies. What is the relevancy of it? Even though it has its own parts, relevancy of the research, significance of the research by itself, there is a place for it under chapter 1. By saying this one, let me come to the criteria of good research problem. A topic should fulfill the following criteria in order to be called a good research problem. Otherwise, it is not called as good research problem. First of all, it is novelties or originality. Your research should be original. Originality is one character of a good research problem and implies that a research problem should not be duplicated in the sense that it should have some new elements. Even though it has been taken or undertaken by other researchers, yours should be different from that researcher's finding. You have to have some new knowledge. You have to add new knowledge for a stock of of knowledge. However, originality does not necessarily mean that a research problem should be totally new. It not be totally new, but you have to add some few knowledge over the stock of knowledge. Otherwise, if there is no few knowledge that you add with your research, it is meaningless for you. While originality is an important consideration, the fact that the problem has been investigated in the past does not mean that it is no longer fit for the studies. This is what we have. The other is interesting. The problem should be interesting for the investigators himself. You have to be interest over that area. Otherwise, it is difficult for you to undertake that research. In other words, a researcher should have strong inherent motivation for it. You have to motivate for that title or for that problem, to solve that problem. The other is importance. It should add to the development of social setup as discipline and to the previous research finding in any way. Importance. Your research should have importance. It should add some knowledge. It should do or uh, add some value over the stock of knowledge. Otherwise, it is not good or has no value if there is no importance. The other is feasibility. A researcher should have required quality to carry out it successful. So this is feasibility. You have to have quality to conduct a research. Otherwise, it has no value. Availability of data. Data is necessary. The data should available. First of all, while you understand or try to select the title, you have to think or you have to take into account whether you get data or not. The other is availability of cooperation. The investigator must make sure that necessary permission and cooperation will be readily available. The availability of other facilities, availability of financial resource, enough time to carry out the study. This is what we have discussed before, because this is including under budgets. When you prepare a proposal, you can consider all of this one. Immediate application. The researcher should solve the problem ongoing. So if your research cannot solve the problem, it is not research. So you have to solve the problem ongoing at that time. I thank you very much. Please share, like, comment, and subscribe. If you do that, I will be motivated. Otherwise, it is difficult to go like this. Thank you.